I'm Jay Taylor. I'm here backstage with Ryan King. He's the Vice President of Corporate Relations of Calibre Mining Corp. Calibre Mining Corp is a company I've been following for a number of years and following it from when it was an exploration company and now it's evolved into a producer. And I want to get into that with Ryan and how that has taken place. But it's a good company that's earning money, earning a lot of money. Had very nice first quarter results. COVID-19 is setting it back a little bit for the time being, as it is with almost everyone. But it's a very exciting story and one I think that the market really hasn't paid as much attention as it should. So thanks for joining me, Ryan.
No problem, Jay. Thanks very much for having me. I look forward to a fulsome discussion.
Yeah, it's really quite a story. Maybe fill us in a little bit for those that aren't familiar with the evolution of Calibre from the exploration company, which I always thought had tremendous exploration potential and still does for sure, but now it's a producer. Tell us how that came about and maybe talk a little bit about the potential. I know that you had a good first quarter result. Financials, you earned a lot of money in the first quarter. COVID-19 is holding you back, but give us the story. How did you evolve into a producer? And what are the prospects going forward here?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Yeah. So you talked a little bit about our history. We have been an exploration company for over 10 years in country in Nicaragua. And really this, the pivot or the evolution changed in 2018. And what spawned that was really this same team, the same group was founders. They were founders of New Market Gold, where we had 3 producing gold assets. They saw great exploration, geological potential at those assets. They drilled those and ended up discovering one of the highest grade underground gold mines in the world. And these gentlemen, Doug Hurst, Doug Forrester, Raymond Threlkeld, founders of New Market, are founders of Calibre. And because of the success that came out of New Market, you know, they acquired gold production. So they were self-funded through the cash flow and were able to put capital to work, to invest in the assets, to invest in exploration, and therefore had a very significant value-driving discovery at Fosterville. And then financial engineered a deal to merge the company to create a better financial product with Kirkland Lake Gold. And that's gone on to do very well indeed as well. So where we decided to change was, you know, as we know, the cycles are up and down in the gold sector. And during some downtimes, we felt that it was best to look for production for Calibre. And so we restructured the company. We rolled it back 10 for 1. We had to do a rollback. And we felt it was best to pivot the company, look for production in the environment that we were in 2017 and 18. And through the relationships that these gentlemen that I've just mentioned have in the sector, have been in the sector for over 30 years, we're able to strike a win-win deal with B2 Gold. And we know B2 Gold well. Obviously, they've been in country for 10 years, operating the El Limon and La Libertad mines for 10 years, very successfully. B2 Gold is now a multi-billion-dollar successful gold mining company. And they have assets all around the world. These assets ended up being smaller in their portfolio when we struck this deal. They were less than 4 or 5% of their NAV. They were less than 7% of their annual production. So we were able to strike a deal where they took some cash, they took some shares, and I believe that we demonstrated that we have a track record of success by doing these types of transactions. And therefore, we were able to do a deal where they took some cash and some shares, because we were going to be a team that had very deep bench strength of human capital, but as well as capital to allocate to the assets to, again, hopefully expand resources, make new discoveries, and optimize the operations. And really, you know, Jay, to move forward into where we are today, that's what's happened. We really have focused on the operations very closely. We've brought in a tremendous operator. His name is Darren Hall. He was 25 years at Newmont. He was very well respected there as somebody that was able to review and optimize operations wherever it may be in the world. He's worked in Peru, he's worked in Argentina, he's worked in Indonesia. So a significant amount of global experience specifically related to gold mining. So when we acquired the assets last October, one of the first things that he did was review the mills, review the mines, and at the Libertad operation, he said the best thing we can do is idle down one of the two ball mills. So we've reduced throughput at that operation, and we're already seeing and recognizing a cost savings of roughly, I think it's $500,000 to $550,000 per month of cost savings.
Oh.
So pretty significant change already, and this is evolved now into what we call the hub and spoke operating approach. So we don't really look at the operations now as two distinct standalone operations, mills and mines. We look at Nicaragua as our landscape, our canvas, and we look at a mill up in the north, the El Limon, and a mill in the south, La Libertad. Libertad is quite a bit bigger. It's almost 5 times bigger in size of throughput to El Limon. But needless to say, we have excess capacity at Libertad, and therefore we're looking at this approach where we can haul ore around the country fairly effectively, safely, because of the good infrastructure. And you pointed it out, Jay, you know, in our first full quarter of production, we produced 42,000 ounces of gold over our budget internally. I think better than what a lot of the market anticipated for a quarter production for us. You know, our original guidance for the year was 140 to 150,000 ounces of annual production. In Q4, we produced over 40,000 ounces of gold production. So, and as you said, we demonstrated good economics. We added 10 million of cash to our balance sheet, so sitting at 43 million in cash. So we're really starting to advance this hub and spoke approach where we've got multiple ore sources and we've got excess capacity in our processing facilities. So we think there's a very bright future here. And at the same time, to your point, we are layering on 60,000 meters of exploration drilling amongst targets at both operations and a development stage project called Pavon. We see exploration potential, a long strike down plunge of these zones, and we're also broadening the scope. These districts, you know, for example, Libertad has produced over 2 million ounces of gold over the number of decades it's been in operation. El Limon has been in operation for decades and has produced over 3.5 million ounces of gold. So, you know, when you look at low sulfidation epithermal districts, these are world-class districts. These are world-class endowments. And we believe we're in the right setting to find new resources and expand current resources from where we currently are. So very exciting time for Calibre. And we believe we're just getting started with these operating assets.
Yeah, so from B2's perspective, as you say, it wasn't one of their more major assets, these two mines, but they have a team now. First of all, I think they're still your largest shareholder, right?
They are.
And so they're now having a team of people that know how to leverage up to build something bigger. And certainly the exploration potential has always been there. So they come out really well with it, and they can go and focus other parts of the world where they're working. And you, of course, benefited from the groundwork that they did initially, you know, allowing you to operate in Nicaragua. Okay, so where you've got a lot of exploration, you say, 60,000 meters, you said. So
that's right.
What should people be watching for now? What are really the drivers that investors should be paying attention to? What news should we be on the lookout for?
Yeah, great question. And maybe I'll just step back for a quick second to B2 Gold. And to your point, B2 Gold are very good operators.
Yes.
They do a very good job on environment and social responsibility. They laid a fantastic framework and foundation on these assets. They did a lot of community relations, government relations. You know, I'll tell you, back in October, the CEO, COO, and CFO and myself sat down with the ministers within the Nicaraguan government, as well as Mr. Ortega himself. And he actually said, we're very thankful for B2 Gold. They did a very good job in our country, very responsible miners. And so they wanted to know how B2 was involved in the company. We said as a shareholder, they sit on our board of directors and advisor. So they were pleased by that. What they were also pleased by, Jay, was the fact that Calibre's coming in and looking at the operations differently. A new approach, a new philosophy to hauling ore around and utilizing the process facilities, but keeping people working and hopefully employing more and making these a very robust operations. And so they were very pleased by that. You know, we're investing heavily in the drill bit. One of the things to look forward to for Calibre is this initial 60,000 meter drill program. It's been exciting. You know, we've already had some fantastic results. In some cases, new discoveries, albeit it's very early days. In some cases, expansion of resources, which we believe will be larger than the current resource base. So lots more drilling to come. The second half of the year, I think by the end of the year, we'll be up to 10 diamond drill rigs operating amongst the assets we have in the country. So one of the big drivers here will be exploration success. News on that. And then as we evolve this hub and spoke operating philosophy, I think it's going to be important to see Calibre execute, you know, on a quarter by quarter basis. These assets historically had underperformed. You know, they were smaller in the portfolio. They in some cases came in less production, higher costs. So I think when we came in, a lot of people said, well, what do you really think you can do here? Is there really opportunity? But, you know, with a team that's 120% focused, with years of gold mining experience, you know, it's like anything. You walk into a living room in somebody else's home, you can see opportunities, or you can see areas where, you know, maybe the drapes are older, maybe the carpet is shag. You know, it's just these little things that you look at, right? And everybody does it the same. You know, the same would be for anybody that walk in on the operations that we have today. They might be able to see opportunities, and you know, so we've been able to do that. Unfortunately, we've got you know, very good architects behind this hub and spoke, which is, you know, Darren and Russell and John, who did this in Nevada for Newmont. They were involved in this hub and spoke approach. So that's another piece of news coming out. You know, it's not only the quarter by quarter execution, but it's also in June, we're coming out with a 10-year forward-looking plan based on the mineral resources we have today. So we're coming out saying, you know, here's what we think how this hub and spoke approach is going to look like. We'll have a conference call on that. We'll be able to educate the market on what we're seeing based on the current mineral inventory and resource that we have. This has nothing to do with the exploration we're doing. So that's a layer in above of this hub and spoke. So very exciting time for these assets. We believe it's still just early days, lots of drilling to be done in front of us. And then of course, you know, as we look forward, you know, we believe there's really good opportunity to have very good production, potentially lower costs in a rising gold market environment. So it's exciting to be a part of with these assets.
Yeah, certainly the hub and spokes idea certainly makes sense. I believe you're hauling higher grade material down to your larger mill. And so obviously economies of scale that start to factor in, and the more ore that you can find, it's a very exciting story. Now your focus is primarily on producing gold, but you have other projects that are also very exciting, and exciting enough to attract a company of, well, Rio Tinto to a joint venture, or at least an option to earn into a joint venture. Recently, what do you think Rio Tinto is looking at? Why would they be interested in Nicaragua, and in particular that part of your land package down there?
Yeah, so you know, over the years prior to doing this deal with B2 Gold last year, we were up in the northern part of the country. They're called the Barosi district. It's known as the Golden Triangle, actually, for those familiar with Nicaragua and Central America. And that's because there's been over 8 million ounces of gold produced up there. There's been over 300 million pounds of copper produced. Falconbridge, Noranda were there years ago. And there's good infrastructure up there. So it was back in 2015, Calibre discovered the early stages of a porphyry copper gold system, right at the back of a farmer's field on low rolling hills, roads to site, power to site. We drilled 280 meters of 0.8 gold and 0.3 copper. And so the market was very, very excited about that. One of the first drill holes into a new system, very good grades, very good widths, right from surface, so lots of excitement. The share price went way up. But what we learned after about 30 holes was that a big fault had come through the system and displaced a part of the mineralization. So a post-mineralized fault had come in, and it's either on strike or it's down plunge or it's eroded away. We just don't know at this point in time. Not enough work has been done there. But 18 months ago, I started to have this discussion with Rio, and it was more than 18 months ago now. And initially they said, this is not a country we operate in, so not interested. A couple weeks later, I actually sent them a technical presentation on those Barosi concessions that we have, and they came back and said, this is interesting to us. Can we sign a confidentiality agreement? And what was interesting to them, I think, and I believe, was the potential for large bulk tonnage porphyry style deposits. That's what Rio's interested in. They're interested in these very large and copper predominant, right?
Sure.
And so after 2 site visits, after almost a year of due diligence, they did political, legal, they did logistical due diligence, geological due diligence. And after all of that, we were able to come to a deal with Rio. So this is a new country entry for Rio. So we signed a deal where they could earn in by spending $45 million over 10 years to earn a 75% interest in the Barosi districts. And then in addition to that, because they're there now, they have a holding in the country. They said, well, what else can we do? And we suggested, well, maybe there's some other ground you like. So they asked us. We suggested applications on a number of grounds up in the northern part of the country where there's these older rocks with these bulk tonnage potential. And so we actually applied for 1.5 million hectares in Nicaragua, in the northern part of Nicaragua. So those are under application now. Don't think there'll be any issue to get those. And Rio is spending the money. We're doing generative work now to understand the targets. What I believe they'll do first is probably a large airborne survey over the whole area, and then they'll decide on the targets they want to advance. And with that, they can then select individual projects in that larger concession and earn in on a project-by-project basis on those. So I think this is huge validation, not only for the geological underexplored nature of the country, but I think it's huge potential and validation for the country itself.
Yeah, it's terrific. I mean, it's some icing on the cake, perhaps, and you have a lot of cake that is growing as well. You're, with what you're focused on, your primary focus, it's exciting. Now, let me just ask, we're really out of time, Ryan, but with regard to COVID-19, where does your operating status stand at this moment?
So we went on temporary suspension, self-imposed, voluntary temporary suspension back at the end of March. Our chief operating officer, Darren, was recognizing how internationally the pandemic was increasing in terms of cases, but in terms of deaths as well. So understanding that, he felt it was prudent to take proactive steps to, in a controlled environment, suspend operations. We did that right around the first week of April. So operations have been suspended, but in a state of operational readiness. So we have furloughed a lot of our employees, so people are actually getting paid. We have probably about $2 to $2.5 million a month of expenses, but we felt it important to keep the people engaged, make sure they're staying safe, and now we're actually reviewing opportunities to restart. So hopefully, with the right steps, with the right preventative measures. We've been training the employees on different steps that we need to take to make sure that everybody stays safe. PPE equipment, whether it be steps to get through the mine gate. We've been training everybody. So the hope is that we restart, and we're really evaluating that now to see about the timing, but to restart sometime in June, and then back into full commercial production during the month of June.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll have to leave it go at that, Ryan, but boy, it's an exciting story. It's one I'm really quite excited about, and I hope people viewing this this discussion will find it so as well, because I think it's the best of both worlds. You got production, plus you have upside exploration. Usually it's one or the other, but you guys are bringing both, which is very unusual and very exciting. Thank you so much for being with us on Backstage.